Well, good evening, everybody. I'm very happy to be here tonight in Annapolis. So, just to give you a little bit of background, 12 years ago, I sailed on a catamaran with my wife and our kids all the way from France to Tahiti. We decided to stay in Tahiti. It wasn't the original plan, but we fell in love with French Polynesia. So we've been living there for 10 years now. And during these 10 years, I've sailed twice on excess catamarans from France again all the way to Tahiti. I like to try the products I sell. And the best way to try a catamaran is to sail across an ocean with it. So the idea tonight is to tell you a little bit about French Polynesia, about what it is like to sail across an ocean as a cruiser. You know, I'm not a professional sailor. I'm just an average cruiser, I would say. And to tell you about the Pacific Puddle Jump, why we last year we decided to take over this rally and what it can bring to people that want to live the adventure of sailing to French Polynesia. So sailing to Tahiti, it's more than just a transatlantic. You can see that's two of my trips on the chart, and you can see that once you're in Panama, you've done just half the way to Tahiti. The Pacific is the biggest ocean, and basically between Galapagos and the Marquesas, there's nothing. It's just emptiness, just the ocean, and it takes more times between Galapagos and Marquesas, like 30% more time than what you do between the Canary Island and the Caribbean. So it's really a bigger, longer journey.
Naviguer en Polynésie, c'est approcher le paradis quand même. On a vraiment l'exotisme et l'image de la Polynésie avec les Tuamotu, les Marquises, les îles sous le vent. Chaque espace de navigation a ses propres qualités, c'est très diversifié. Pour faire ce beau voyage et revenir régulièrement, puisque notre bateau est basé à Papeete, nous avons choisi un catamaran de la marque Excess, d'abord plutôt qu'un monocoque, parce que nous avions un monocoque précédemment, mais un catamaran dans les lagons, c'est le paradis, il y a un espace de vie exceptionnel. Donc quand j'ai choisi le modèle de l'Excess 14, j'ai cherché le concessionnaire qui pourrait partager ce projet avec moi. J'ai rencontré à distance David Alouche de Sail Tahiti. On a axé bien sûr sur la sécurité, donc on a mis du matériel de communication qui permet d'être multiple déjà. On a mis beaucoup de panneaux solaires aussi pour être en autonomie électrique. On a des salinisateurs pour être aussi en autonomie, ce qui est aussi l'avantage dans les navigations de plusieurs mois dans les lagons. On est en totale autonomie, on n'a pas besoin de rentrer au port ou dans une marina. Ce travail a été fait en collaboration avec Sail Tahiti, qui nous a apporté toute son expérience de la Polynésie, et on a adapté effectivement le bateau à la Polynésie. Ça nous permet aussi, sur place, d'avoir le soutien logistique, technique, pour que notre bateau soit le mieux préservé quand nous sommes absents. On a choisi la marque Excess parce qu'il y avait un très bon rapport qualité-prix. On a traversé donc avec le concessionnaire David l'Atlantique. On a fait donc des bons surfs sur de belles vagues avec ce bateau, et avec l'équipage et le bateau, je me sentais en sécurité. Alors que j'avais jamais traversé l'Atlantique. Pour participer au rallye dont s'occupe David, c'est important de savoir que David a traversé plusieurs fois le Pacifique avec son propre bateau, avec un Excess 11, avec mon bateau un Excess 14. Donc Il connaît parfaitement la route, il a toutes les connaissances humaines et techniques pour que ça se passe bien pour n'importe quel propriétaire de bateau. C'est quand même la traversée d'un océan, donc c'est quand même important de choisir les bonnes routes. Naviguer dans ces contrées, c'est un vrai plaisir humain déjà et un vrai échange avec les gens. Les Polynésiens sont d'un accueil exceptionnel par rapport à beaucoup d'endroits sur la planète.
So the Pacific, it's where multi-hulls were born. You can see my friend Teva.
Déjà, si on fait une rétrospective historique, il faut savoir que la navigation austronésienne ou polynésienne est la plus ancienne.
Sorry, I went to the next one. I'll translate what Teva is saying, and if you come to Tahiti, if you do the Pacific Puddle Jump, you'll meet him. He used to be a champion dinghy sailor, international dinghy sailor. Sailing instructor, taught my kids to sail dinghies, and 10 years ago he decided to devote his life to helping revive the traditional ways of sailing the Polynesians had. And one need to know that way before Columbus, I know tomorrow is Columbus Day, way before Columbus, 4,000 years ago, the Polynesians were already sailing across the Pacific with just the stars and with multi-hulls. And it's when James Cook arrived in French Polynesia, he saw their boat, and he first loved. If you look at the first page, he writes about the books in his journal. He says that these boats are kind of strange, a bit ridiculous. And the next week, they decide to go to Montreal, the island in front of Tahiti, and the multi-hulls are actually circling around him. And he realizes that they are much faster and much easier to maneuver, lighter. So that's what's been translated in the modern catamarans. So going back to Polynesia, it's made of 5 different archipelagos. You'll probably, when you come, you'll arrive through the Marquesas or the Gambia Island when you come from Panama or from Mexico. Then you'll go in the Tuamulus, and then the Society Island, and then most people go westward towards Fiji, Tonga, Vanuatu, and so on. But if you've got enough time, you can also explore the Austral Island. The Marquesas, it's the first place you'll arrive. There are very big mountains falling into the sea, so black cliffs covered with jungle, and they have just an incredible people with a very, very strong culture. And that's the place across all the Pacific, except maybe Easter Island, where you'll find the most archaeological sites. So it's not just a place for adventure and so on, it's also a place where you can discover what the culture was before Westerners arrived. You can see that's a painting from Gauguin, the French painter who lived in Marquesas, and at the same place, same beach, they still ride wild horses on the beach with no saddles, nothing. So it's a very interesting and captivating place. After Marquesas, you typically sail across to the Tuamulus. It's completely different. It's totally flat. There's no mountain. I think the highest point is about 30 feet above sea level. It's what we call atolls. So it's just a round of coral. Inside the round of coral, you've got shallow water between 0 and 80 feet. And outside, you see on this side of the picture, outside it's 10,000 feet deep. Inside the atoll, you've got plenty of fish. It's a paradise for snorkeling, spear fishing, doing kite surfing, wing foiling. It's flat water. And outside, you've got the big pelagic fish. And if you love scuba diving, in the pass, it's just fascinating. You've got all the big sharks and the big tunas waiting outside for the small fish to exit the pass. That's typical evening in the Tuamulus with other boats having bonfires on the beach. And then after the Tuamotu, you come to the Society Islands. That's where most of the population is. To give you an idea, French Polynesia is the size of Western Europe, maybe the size of half the United States, and it's only 250,000 people. So, and most of these people actually live in the Society Islands. So that's a picture from Bora Bora, seen from Taha, the island in front of Bora Bora. In these islands are surrounded by a coral reef. Then you have the lagoon, and then in the center you have the island. So it's three different geography marquesas, only the volcanoes falling into the sea. The Tuamotus, there's nothing in the middle, it's the volcano sunk, and the Society, it's in between. You still have a bit of island in the middle, the lagoon, and then the coral around it. You've got plenty of things to do and to discover in the Society Island. There's fantastic mountain treks to do with waterfalls. You know, Tahiti is nicknamed the island with the 1,000 waterfalls, and it's true. As soon as you've got some tropical rain, you see all those waterfalls in the mountains. There's two national sports. There's the paddling, which is quite incredible. The team do an incredible distance. Every year we have a race. It's over 3 days, and each day it's about 40 nautical miles. So, and that's just rowing. And of course, there's surfing. The Olympic Games last year took place in French Polynesia for surfing. And that's the wave of Chupu, which is probably the most radical wave in the world. Don't try it if you're not an expert, unless you want to commit suicide. Don't start surfing. You'll understand when you see it. Actually, Lionel lives in front of the wave and he surfs there every weekend, but it's a wave where the locals say the wave is its own police. When you look at it, you know whether you want to go or not. It's pretty clear. But we have also a lot of other spots. We've got the Tahiti and its island museum in Tahiti, which is fascinating. It's about the Polynesian culture, and it's really worth a trip if you want to learn more about the ancient culture. So, preparing for your sailing adventure, if you've decided that you want to cross the Pacific and come to the islands, I'm going to go over three things, and feel free to jump in, James. Of course, the first one is choosing your boat. Second one is choosing your equipment, your options, and the third one is how you prepare once you've got your boat and the day to leave the dock is approaching. So choosing the boat and why I think XS is typically the perfect brand for that kind of adventure is first and foremost you want a boat that is safe and seaworthy. Whether it's new or used, the number one criteria is that it's seaworthy and the structure, everything is in a good condition. The second thing is it has to be fun to sail. There's a lot of boats that are very comfortable but are a bit boring on the sail, and you have to remember you're going to spend several weeks at sea. So if it's boring, you might as well stay home and take the plane to the island directly. So you want a boat that's going to give you some pleasure when you're sailing. But it has to stay comfortable and easy to maneuver. The other, there's in the market for catamaran, there's a bit two kind of categories. Some boats that are extreme performance, so really fun to sail, but they're going to be tiring after several days and nights at sea. And other boats that are going to be very comfortable, very easy to maneuver, but a bit boring. So you have, XS is obviously a great brand for that. I think they've found a good compromise, but it's really based on you. It's not based on what the boat builder is telling you. It's based on your experience, your crew, how old you are, do you have kids, how many people are on the boat, what's your physical shape. That's the kind of thing you need to be thinking about when you're choosing the boat. Not just what the marketing tells you, but really what's going to be good for you. And that's all about, where do you want to be? Do you want to be full comfort? You want to be like this guy, full freedom in the mountain? Or do you want something which is a little bit in the middle, and the middle is different for everybody? Then you have to choose what you're going to put on your boat, and every equipment you will add for comfort will require some energy to run. So you have to keep the two in mind when you're making your choices. So obviously you could sail without a water maker, without a fridge, without a freezer, but then that's going to be a little bit harsh. You can have all those comfort elements. You can also have induction cooking. You can have a TV with big screen to watch your movies at sea, but that's all going to use a lot of electricity. So that means more production and more battery capacity. And you need to make this calculation and really put things in front of each other. So ways of producing energy is obviously a genset. Having bigger alternators, that's something that's getting more and more popular. So when you start your engine, you produce twice as much as with just one alternator. Solar panel is the big one, and a hydro generator, which works perfectly well, which for me is a good solution, because when you put a lot of solar panel, it's fantastic at anchor, and if you put enough, you can run all these things, the induction, the freezer, the microwave, off the solar panel. But then when you're sailing, the main sail is gonna shadow, and the downwind sail is going to shadow some of the solar panel. So you need to think about something else to produce while you're on the way, which can be using your engine, potentially with a bigger alternator or second alternator, having a genset, but that's quite expensive, heavy, or having a hydro generator. So, and again, the choice needs to be based on what you want. Genset is fantastic, but it's noisy. It requires a bit of maintenance, whereas the hydro generator is not very expensive, doesn't make too much noise. But if you are going very fast and you hit a log in the water, you'll probably break the propeller of the hydro generator. So you need to think a little bit beforehand about all these choices. Cooking at sea, because that's a big thing both in terms of preparing. You have to choose what you're gonna bring on the boat, and it's a big pleasure that keeps you busy at sea. And you know, I haven't done as many years as James in the Navy, but I did my military in the French Navy. And the most important person on the boat after the captain, so the commander, is the cook. Okay, so there's things, you know, making bread is fantastic, and you can keep the wheat for many weeks. Fresh food you will only keep for 5 to 10 days, so you need to think, for example, tomatoes, they rot quite quickly, but cabbage can last 3 weeks, so you need then to cook in order, and decide whether you want a freezer or just some vacuum packed meals. That's Le Bon Bac. There's a different brand. That's one I like. It's a French company, and they supply all the solo sailors, and it's very practical if the weather is bad and you don't really feel like cooking, because you just put that in the bag for 10 minutes in boiling water, and then you've got. So this one is it's like petit salé aux lentilles. It's a typical French meal. It's pulled pork with lentils, but they've got dozens of things you can choose from. Yeah.
So going back 2 slides back to the energy and production. So when I crossed Atlantic on XS14, the owners wanted to have minimizing the fossil footprint of their journeys. So they decided not to equip the boat with a generator, but that provided some challenges to being able to make water, because that consumes a lot of energy. So we would actually have to ration Starlink. These are choices you have to make, and ration water and so forth. But But people, just as David said, you can make choices, and if you have a philosophy of traveling a certain way, then there's a way to make it work. But you gotta give that a try and see how it goes. And then as far as batteries, how many have heard of lithium ferrous phosphate batteries? How many of you have them? Yes. So these batteries. So I'm an ABYC master technician, and ABYC did destructive testing on those batteries, and they could not get them to combust or do anything short of throwing them in a fire themselves. So, when you hear the word lithium ferrous phosphate on boats, they are actually safer than your lead acid batteries, but they have different mechanisms when they shut down. So just be aware of that. Cooking is so important. Again, on a submarine, I would say the most important person is the cook, because that is your big morale booster. If the food stinks, your morale goes down. Food's great, then the morale is up. And there we go. So there's Scott back there. He has been on a cook. I've been traveled thousands of miles with this gentleman over there. He cooks the food at home, freezes them, and vacuum seals them, and brings them all on board. So he's prepared. But that is very, very important. And when I did the ARC on our boat, Jill had a whole Thanksgiving dinner, turkey, all the fixings, and mashed potatoes, just so we can feel like home, and we did. So that's key. And then you can talk about fishing.
So fishing is one of the great pleasures of sailing offshore. It's also a great source of proteins. The first thing to remember, I would say, is to fish responsibly. So we are very fortunate in French Polynesia. We've got the biggest, apart from the United States, the biggest water area, if you want, a protected area. And no industrial fishing is allowed. There's no net fishing. There's the big fishing fleet all around. Same thing in the Galapagos. As soon as you're outside the Galapagos water, you see the big tuna fleets, but they are not allowed to come inside. So that means in the Galapagos, in French Polynesia, there's a lot of pelagic fish. And obviously it's not us cruisers who are going to destroy it, but we need to keep in mind that we want to keep the fish. So once you've got one fish, it's better to get your lines out of the water and wait for a few days until you don't have any more fish, and then try again to catch one. You don't catch a big fish very often when you're trolling, but when it happens, it's a big excitement. The one thing is you need to have big rods and big lines, because usually the fish doesn't want to travel in the same direction as you. Okay, so that means the line is going to go out very quickly, and if the fish is strong, if you just have a thin line, it will break. So if you don't want to lose all your lures, think really big rods, very thick lines, and be very careful. A lot of man overboard incidents happen when people try to bring the fish in the boat. A tuna like this, that was my wife, is about 30 kilograms, and it doesn't want to end up in your cook pan, right? So it's gonna fight for its life. So you have to tie yourself up when you go in the scope to catch the fish and things like that. Communication. Yesterday we had some folks from Starlink, thanks to James and his network in the aerospace industry. It's been a complete revolution over the past years. There's many different ways of communicating at sea. Once you're offshore, you can have. There's one I really like, which is the Garmin InReach. It's not very expensive. It fits in a pocket. People can see where you are. You can send messages, and you can also use it once you're on the island if you want to do a trek somewhere where it's a bit remote. you can take the inReach with you. The Iridium Go, it used to be the big thing. I think with Starlink, there's going to be less people having it. It can be a good backup if something happens to your Starlink antenna. And then most people nowadays use Starlink, and we always have the question of what antenna should I choose? And we had somebody from Starlink who was very, very knowledgeable about it yesterday, and James can put you in touch. But basically, the idea is the best one when you're at sea is the performance one, but it's expensive and it uses a lot of energy. I think on a catamaran, it works perfectly. Maybe not on the smaller boat with less solar panels and so on. The Mini on the other side, it's fine when you're close to the shore, but it's a little bit less reliable. As soon as you've got big waves, as you've got rain, storms, and so on, you lose a lot of bandwidth. And that's the one in the middle, which is what the folks from Starlink were advising us to use, is the middle one in the range, and using it at 24 volt. So they have you can use a DC-DC 12 volt to 24 volt converter, and you will use less energy than if you plug it onto the 110 or the 220. But if you just use it with the 12 volt, you sometimes lose if the voltage drops, you lose the satellite connection. Anyway, it's evolving as we speak, but that's one of the big things to consider. Weather routage, that's probably the most important thing in terms of safety, is choosing your route based on the weather. So there's different kind of software. Probably the one most people use is Predict Wind, which is, I think, perfect for cruising. You also have softwares like Time Zero or Adrena that are excellent, but a little bit more complex. So most people tend to stick with Predict Wind. Maybe you want to add a word about it, James. I know you're very keen on choosing the weather for safety. That's something we have in common. So I'll let you take the mic and tell us what you think.
Yeah. So in short, my philosophy on offshore sailing, or really going anywhere, are make sure you're taking care of three things: your crew, your vessel, and mindful of the weather. So what's interesting is that there's a big difference between racers and cruisers, and I think most of you are racers here. I mean cruisers, because racers will sail into anything. But cruisers, we're not that crazy. So if you don't have to go when there's possibility of weather out there, don't go. I was speaking to a cruiser the other day. He and his wife has done circumnavigations. They've done it twice, and they've claimed they've never sailed in a storm. It's because they're not on a schedule. They will wait, and so forth. So that is probably one of the kindest things you can do to your crew and your boat and your sanity, is to just be very mindful of the weather. And it was a really good segue with the communications going into this, because the types of communications you have will have a direct impact on your how recent weather data you can get and what fidelity you can. So if you can opt for the better bandwidth at a shorter time, get that high resolution data so you can interpret that and make the wise decisions, the better, and so forth. Yeah.
Thank you, James. And I can completely relate to what you say. When before I sailed to Tahiti with my family, I used to do a lot of regattas, and I jumped on my boat with my wife and kids, thinking I was still a racer. And very quickly, after a few nights at sea, when you get yourself into a squall, you realize that it's not just like 2 hours for fun in front of the yacht club. As you're really offshore, you don't want something to break on the boat. You don't want somebody to get injured. And that's all based on planning according to the weather. positioning and backup. So there's again plenty of systems. Different brands of boat choose a different electronics manufacturer. XS has chosen Garmin, which is very cool. One of the cool feature is, you know, I've got my Garmin watch, and on the watch you can link it to the boat, and with that you can do two things. One, which is completely silly, is you can use the autopilot on your watch. I tried once, the rest of the team told me to stop immediately. The other one, which is very useful, is you can see on your watch the data from the NMEA network. So you can see the wind, you can see your boat speed, you can see the depth. So when you're not on watch and suddenly you feel that something has changed, you can immediately see on your watch if the wind has increased or decreased and so on. So I think it's an added safety. But anyway, no matter which brand you use, for me the most important is to have at least two systems completely redundant and to plot the boat position on the paper chart. That's the only way. If you lose all electronics, hopefully it won't happen, but if, for example, you've got a big problem with your battery and you don't have electricity anymore, with the paper chart, you know where you were the last time you plotted. So on an ocean, I always do it every 12 hours. And it's fun to do, and it gives you a different vision of the ocean because you really see the big picture. And if you remember in the Volvo Ocean Race, about 12 years ago, there was a boat, Vestas, that ended up on a reef in the middle of the Indian Ocean because they didn't look at the paper chart. Because to see that reef on the electronic chart, you had to zoom a lot. But the guys were busy looking at the weather, looking at where the other boats were, just with that, racing mindset. And they didn't pay attention to the fact that there was like just one reef in the middle of the Indian Ocean. How on earth can you end up on that reef? But that's life, right? So looking at the paper chart, having two systems, maybe your Garmin or your Raymarine, and then on your phone or your tablet, Navionics or something like that. So you will always have a way of knowing where you are. The downwind sails is again a big subject when once you've chosen your boat and you want to choose your equipment. There's two big categories of downwind sails. The first one are the furling sails, and the second one are the sails with socks. So furling sails are typically the code 0 or multi-purpose codes, which are in between a code 0 and an asymmetrical spinnaker. They are easier to remove. You just need to furl them. Still, you need to do it early. Once you get into 35 knots and you're trying to furl your code 0, it will be physically difficult. So you need to do it before the squall comes. But it's easier than a sail with the sock. A sail with the sock is very easy. It's very easy to lower the sock when there's no wind. But if you've got a lot of pressure in the sail, it becomes harder. So basically, the idea behind that is the more volume, the rounder the shape of your sail, the more it will carry you, pull you, so you'll go faster when you're really downwind. But the harder it will be to lower or to furl when you need. So again, a question of knowing yourself. Don't overestimate yourself. Don't underestimate yourself neither. Otherwise, you'll just go with a self-tacking jib and get bored. But be mindful of your physical strength and don't go over your limits. Last thing is obviously all the spare parts and tools you need to take with you on the boat. The first idea is that you need to be able to fix everything that can break on the boat and that can have an impact on your safety. But the second idea is that you also don't need tools that you don't know how to use. I mean, if you're not like a specialized mechanics, maybe you don't need the super complex tool because anyway you won't be able to change the injectors at sea if you've never done it before. So the idea is really choosing the things you need and anticipating to your next stopover. Um, you you know, and the beauty of the catamaran is most of the systems are redundant. We have two engines. We have everything you have, you know, double. So if you can't use one engine for whatever reason, you'll still make it to harbor. Your dock maneuver will be harder. So maybe you call before arriving in the harbor, and you plan for your stopover to call the local rigging shop, the local mechanics. But really, choosing your spare part and your tool, it's one of the very important thing before you leave. And last one is of course being ready for emergencies. I mean the good thing is most of the catamarans don't sink. People in these boats, I know them personally. They were rescued safely. The boat ended up disappearing, but after several days, so they had plenty of time to get in the life raft, and they were very well prepared, which means having your gear, having your grab bag, having your life raft ready, and having a process, knowing who will do what if you end up, unfortunately, in an emergency situation. Who will launch the life raft? Who will grab the grab bag? Where the grab bag is, and so on. And then, even in the worst case, on a catamaran, it's not going to sink. Or if it ends up sinking, it will take many hours. So if you're well prepared and you've got the Starlink, you've got the EPIRB, you'll be rescued in time. So then, yeah, getting ready for the starts. Once you've got your tools, you've got your communication meal, you've got your navigation system, your downwind sails. It's a question in the couple of weeks before you leave to cross the Pacific. There are several checks you should be conducting. The first one is obviously your standing rigging. Second one is your running rigging. Checking all your ropes, all your blocks, checking your sails, making sure that all the seams are in good condition. They're not gonna tear apart during the crossing. Checking that your electronics are still functioning well. There's one thing, you know, it's like with a computer. If your chart plotter starts not working well, it will not get better. Never happens. So the electricity, checking all your connection, the battery connection, it's a big safety element. Make sure that everything is tight, the batteries are not moving, the cables are really screwed tightly, and doing the engine service. So coming to the Pacific Puddle Jump, so just a brief word of history. The Pacific Puddle Jump was created almost 30 years ago by a guy named Andy Turpin, who was the editor-in-chief of Latitude 38 magazine. He was in Mexico and wondering what's next. Do we go to the Caribbean or do we turn right and go into the Pacific, the less traveled route? And he decided to go to the Pacific. He offered some friends to join on their boat, and they started the Pacific Puddle Jump. Over the year, it's grown to about 200 boats before COVID, always with a spirit of freedom. It's not your typical rally where you have lots of rules and regulation and timeline. It's really, you start when you want, from the harbor you want on the eastern part of the Pacific, but you stay in contact with the other sailors. So last year, Andy told me and my wife Nikki that he was getting too old to keep managing the rally because it requires a lot of energy to go to Panama, to go to Mexico, to go to Marquesas to meet all the sailors. So he asked us if we would like to take over, because he didn't want the rally to end. And that's what we did. But nowadays we've got a full technical team at Sail Tahiti, so we've tried to bring more technical support to those who want it. It's still a rally where you can register for free. So it's not a commercial thing. You can be part of the club if you want, without paying anything, and you'll be on the tracking page with all the boats, and you'll know about all the events. Or you can buy a subscription where the top level, which we've designed with Access, you have a hotline at sea. You can call us if you obviously you need Starlink or VRGM, but you can call our technical team in Tahiti, and they will help you solve the problems you have. You've got the rigging check done in Panama, and electrical connection check done. You're invited to all the events. You've got a conciergerie, so when you arrive in Tahiti, if it's a special event, a birthday or anything, you can ask us to book a restaurant. You'll have special price at the diving clubs to go diving in the Tuamolus. And a big part of the Pacific Puddle Jump is really bringing sailors and the local population together. We tend to see the local population being a bit scared of all these people coming on their boats, the sailors not really knowing how to communicate with the locals. So one of the big objectives of the Pacific Puddle Jump is really to foster these exchanges and enable sailors to meet the people and discover their culture. That's my friend Andy. That's the tracking always in real time. You can see all the other boats, so it's a bigger safety element. That's I'm going to show you the typical events we have at the end of the rally every year.
La première édition de la Tahiti Moorea C'est des rendez-vous, elle m'est soufflée ou demandée par mon ami Andy Turpin, qui est le créateur du Pacific Puddle Jump. Et il voulait qu'on organise un petit accueil pour les puddle jumpers lorsqu'ils arrivent en Polynésie. Notre objectif n'est pas seulement d'accueillir les plaisanciers, mais de créer un moment de rencontre entre les plaisanciers et notre population.
This is our second time in the Tahiti Moorea rendezvous, and we enjoyed it so much we decided that 16 years later we would come back and do it all again. The thing that we really like about the Rendezvous Festival is interacting with other sailors certainly, but also being able to spend some time with locals and enjoy some of the cultural activities that they put on for us. The canoe races are always special, as carving into coconuts and the lifting the rocks and all that stuff. And I think the thing that strikes us the most, that this is such a laid-back culture, and we really enjoy going slow. As we were crossing the Pacific, we were able to communicate with many other boaters who were crossing along with us. And at that time, we mentioned that the Tahiti Moorea Rendezvous was an excellent opportunity to see some great culture. So we started putting out the word very early on. We were sign up number one, and then we had several boats, Wanderlust, 10X, and others who we were able to get excited about the rendezvous as well.
On a mis en place un partenariat avec la mairie de Papeete et le service de la jeunesse de la mairie qui nous permet, ils nous font l'honneur de nous confier des jeunes des quartiers prioritaires de Papeete. Donc cette année, j'ai eu 16 jeunes qui nous sont confiés et qui, pendant une journée, vont embarquer à bord des bateaux de plaisance pour découvrir qu'est-ce que c'est qu'un bateau de plaisance, comment c'est à l'intérieur, comment on vit. Et donc ils font cette traversée avec nous de Papeete à Moorea pour la journée. C'est vraiment un des moments forts pour moi de cet événement. C'est ces enfants qui, pendant une journée, découvrent ce que c'est que ce monde, que le tourisme nautique, qu'ils voient de loin lorsqu'ils passent à la marina de Papeete, mais qu'ils ne maîtrisent pas vraiment. Et de les sortir de leur quartier, de peut-être planter une petite graine que dans ce pays, on est quand même un peuple de la mer, et les ramener vers leurs origines et qu'il y a des possibilités pour eux de devenir peut-être pêcheurs, capitaines, équipage sur un voilier, qu'il y a plein d'opportunités pour nos jeunes. La particularité de notre événement, d'abord c'est le seul événement de ce type dans tout le Pacifique. On veut faire de la Moorea Sailing Rendez-vous un moment de rencontre et d'ouverture vers les autres îles du Pacifique. Parce que pour moi le Pacifique, c'est une région de navigation, un bassin de navigation à part entière. Alors le domaine Kelum, là aussi c'est une super belle rencontre. Il est géré par une association qui s'appelle la Tahitian Historical Society qui souhaite aider les jeunes de la vallée de Opunou'ou à trouver du travail, à retourner vers leur terre. À l'origine, ce domaine il est acheté par Monsieur Kelum qui est arrivé en voilier en Polynésie il y a à peu près 100 ans, qui est tombé amoureux de la baie de Opunou'ou et qui a acheté une grande partie de la baie de Opunou'ou. Il a souhaité garder une partie du terrain pour lui, donc c'est là où nous sommes aujourd'hui, mais il a surtout souhaité donner au territoire, à la Polynésie, l'ensemble de sa propriété pour un franc symbolique, à la condition que la vallée de Opunou'ou reste toujours une vallée agricole et non pas des grandes structures hôtelières ou des grosses administrations. Il voulait que ça reste agricole. Ne ratez surtout pas ce moment-là, ça dure 3 jours et c'est un moment que vous allez kiffer complètement. C'est un moment qui est fait pour vous, dédié pour vous. Il y a plein de petites attentions qu'on a pour vous pour être sûr que, encore une fois, à un moment dans votre passage en Polynésie, vous allez être accueillis, vous allez avoir la possibilité de vivre notre culture, de rencontrer les Polynésiens, d'accueillir des Polynésiens dans votre bateau et de vous intéresser sur ce qui vous arrivera derrière vos prochaines escales. À la fin, les gens pleurent et me disent que c'était plus que ce qu'ils attendaient. Ils ne s'imaginaient pas que c'était tout ça la Tahiti Moorea Sailing Rendez-vous.
It's just beautiful. The culture, the people, it's just so friendly. I feel this whole event is spectacular for anybody. Just the cultural experience is just amazing. Don't wait too long for a crossing because it's an experience of a lifetime.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to ask either me or James.
When do we go?
Exactly. Who's coming?